Welcome to 21 Days of EFT with Vinali Date. Day 16, Breaking Free from Fat Shaming. Welcome to today's tapping session on releasing the shame and frustration associated with being overweight. It's common to hold negative emotions like self-judgment, anger, and shame, which can keep us stuck in the cycle of not so good enough feelings. These feelings are often reinforced by societal expectations and the diet industry, which tells us we aren't acceptable unless we look a certain way. Today, we're going to be tapping through these feelings, working towards self acceptance and self love at any size. First, using a scale from 0 to 10, pick a number that matches how strongly you still hate being overweight, how intensely you feel angry or ashamed about your current body self. 10 being the strongest. Who would have thought that deciding to accept yourself could be so hard? Even though we know that feelings like self judgment, shame, anger, and frustration contribute to I am not good enough thoughts that keep the extra weight on our bodies, it's still tough to let go of the shame and embrace self love and acceptance. This is especially hard for women because we have been deeply influenced by the diet industry's message eat less, deprive yourself. If you can't, it means you're lazy and not trying hard enough. All this talk is exhausting, isn't it? On the top of that, the thought that we aren't good enough unless we look a certain way adds to the pressure. It teaches us that women are worthy only if they are attractive to men, which makes being fat seems unacceptable. If being fat is unacceptable, a part of us starts to believe we are unacceptable. This belief keeps the weight on our body almost like a subconscious justification. At the same time, we may be subconsciously holding on to the weight as the way to say, chuck it to the patriarchy and to anyone who has ever suggested that we aren't good enough unless we are thinner. Ideally, we want to tap around this issue until the number comes down to somewhere between 0 and 3. Even if we don't reach 0 today, the leftover energy might shift after we sleep. This is a big topic though. We might need to address this from different angles before we can honestly say I love myself no matter what my weight is. Once you have picked up your number, let's begin tapping on our hand's karate chop point. Tapping on the karate chop point, even though part of me still hates being this size and I hate myself for letting it get to this point, I accept that these are my feelings and it's okay for me to feel this way. Even though I'm embarrassed to admit I wish I wasn't fat and I can't fully accept myself at this weight, I'm open to the idea that I can love and accept myself completely. Even though I am ashamed of myself of not accepting my body and I'm judging myself for doing so, I choose to relax and forgive myself. Continue tapping through these points, starting with the eyebrow point. Tapping on the eyebrow, I wish I could say I've stopped fighting my weight. Tapping on the side of the eyes, but honestly, I haven't. Tapping under the eye, I still wish I was thinner. Tapping under the nose, I still hate how much I weigh. Tapping on the chin, I struggle to accept myself at this size. Tapping on the collarbone, and I can't stop resisting this weight. Tapping under the armpit, I don't want it on my body. Tapping on the top of the head, I just want it gone. tapping on the eyebrow point. The urge to fight it is so strong. Tapping on the side of the eyes. I don't accept myself like this. Tapping under the eyes. I know that by resisting, I'm keeping it here. Tapping under the nose. Shame and feeling unworthy are adding to the weight. Tapping on the chin. But I can't let go of these feelings. Tapping on the collarbone. Now I'm angry at myself for judging myself. Tapping on the armpit. I'm stuck in this endless loop. Tapping on the top of the head, which means I'm judging myself for judging myself. Tapping on the eyebrow point, giving myself another thing to feel anxious and guilty about. Tapping on the side of the eyes, I'm scolding the part of me that won't accept myself as I am. Tapping under the eyes, if the key is self-acceptance. Tapping on the nose, I am getting worse. Tapping on the chin, and I'm judging myself for that too. Tapping on the collarbone, so many reasons for beating myself up. Tapping under the armpit, beating myself up for not loving myself enough. Tapping on the top of the head, beating myself up for beating myself up. Tapping at the eyebrow point, how on the earth do I break out of this ridiculous cycle? Tapping on the side of the eyes, how do I love myself completely if I still hate the excess fat on my body? Tapping under the eyes, part of me refuses to approve of myself. Tapping under the nose, until I have earned that approval. Tapping on the chin, by being thinner. Tapping on the collarbone, ah yes, that familiar old pattern of having love withheld from me. Tapping under the armpit, until I have earned it by being thin enough, pretty enough, smart enough, yada yada. Tapping on the top of the head, where did I first learn this pattern? Tapping at the eyebrow point, when did I realize that love was conditional? Tapping on the side of the eyes, who taught me that I had to earn this conditional love? Tapping under the eyes, whose love am I really trying to earn by being thinner? Tapping under the nose, I've spent years cracking the whip over myself. Tapping on the chin, telling myself to work harder, do more, be more, do better. Tapping on the collarbone, no accomplishment is ever quite enough. Tapping under the armpit, no achievement is ever quite enough. Tapping on the top of the head, so I drive myself, striving, pushing, punishing, forcing myself to be good enough. Tapping in between the eyebrow point, good enough by whose measuring stick? Tapping on the side of the eyes, I have been whipping myself like some kind of slave master for years. Tapping under the eyes, that's got me to where I am today. Tapping under the nose, unhappy, overweight, frustrated, desperate. Tapping on the chin, so maybe it's time to try a new approach. Tapping on the collarbone, at least be open to the possibility of loving myself as I am. tapping on the armpit, even if it is a process, a journey. Tapping on the top of the head, even if the way back to unconditional self-acceptance is a journey. Pause for a moment, close your eyes and take a deep breath. Think about any memories or feelings that surfaced while tapping. If something comes up, continue tapping until you feel a sense of relief. Continue tapping to the eyebrow point. Unconditionally loving myself isn't as easy as you might think. Tapping on the side of the eyes. I have been hating myself up for so long that it's hard to stop. Tapping under the eyes. But I choose to be open to the possibility of loving myself as I am. Tapping under the nose. I choose to release all the old patterns of negative thoughts about myself. Tapping on the chin. And even if I stumble back into old habits along the way, tapping on the collarbone, I will forgive myself for it. Tapping under the armpit, because these old patterns are deeply ingrained. Tapping on the top of the head, so when I fall back into them for a moment, tapping in between the eyebrows, by having a negative thought about myself or my body, tapping on the side of the eyes, I will forgive myself and love myself for recognizing it. Tapping under the eyes, and for reaffirming my efforts and my decisions to love myself. Tap under the nose. Maybe I can stop judging myself by someone else's measuring stick. Tapping on the chin. Maybe I can grab that measuring stick and break it into tiny pieces. Tapping on the collarbone. Okay, fine. Tapping under the armpit. But how do I like my body in this moment? Tapping on top of the head. How do I live with myself right now? Tapping in between the eyebrow point, because I'm so hideously, shockingly fat right now. Tapping at the side of the eyes. But am I really? Tapping under the eyes. Is that really true? Tapping under the nose. Am I really so hideous? Tapping on the chin. Is it really so unbearable to be me as I am right now? Tapping on the collarbone. I have managed up to now without self-imploding from hideousness. Tapping under the armpit. Maybe I can cut myself from slack on the continual self-bashing. Tapping on the top of the head. Maybe, just maybe, I can even think of some things to be like about myself. Pause here again, close your eyes and take long, slow breaths before continuing. Tapping on the eyebrow point. Maybe a little reality check is in order. Tapping at the side of the eyes. Sure, I've got more fat on my body than I would prefer. Tapping under the eyes. But so what? Tapping on the nose. So frickin' what? Tapping on the chin. What if I just stopped being so bothered? Tapping on the collarbone. Would it be so terrible not to mind so much about my weight? Tapping under the armpit. What if I turned my attention to something else, like finding fun in life, living a healthy life, living a medicine-free life? Tapping on the top of the head. This constant worrying about my weight is boring. Tapping in between the eyebrow. It's a joy killer. Side of the eyes tapping. And a buzz killer. Tapping under the eyes. Chuck it. I'm done with this self-bashing. Tapping under the nose. I'm done with this fat shaming. Tapping on the chin. It is dead end road. Tapping on the collarbone. A dead end dieting road. Tapping under the armpit. Surely there is more to life than this. Tapping on the top of the head. More to life than obsessing about my weight. Tapping in between the eyebrow. I would have so much more time, energy, and money without this battle in my life. Tapping at the side of the eyes. This battle that goes on in my mind. Tapping under the eyes. More time and space for volunteering, taking care of my health, or learning a new skill. Tap under the nose. If only I emptied my head of this weight worry nonsense. Tapping on the chin. I would make space for truly living life. Tapping on the collarbone. Maybe I can gently let those old negative patterns go. Under the armpit. Gently untangle myself from the sticky vines of self-fat shame. Tapping on the top of the head. This is my body. Tapping in between the eyebrows. It's the only one I have got. Side of the eyes, tapping, and I choose to love it. Tapping under the eyes. I choose to honor it. Tapping under the nose. I choose to be grateful that I have amazing body. Tapping on the chin. I choose to respect it. Tapping on the collarbone. To nourish it with whole food. Tapping on the armpit. Foods made by nature. Tapping on the top of the head. I choose to begin walking the path of self-love and acceptance. Tapping at the eyebrow point, taking these first steps down this new path. Tapping at the side of the eyes and forgiving myself if I stumble. Tapping under the eyes, maybe it's not so hard to love myself. Tapping under the nose, maybe I'm not so bad after all. Tapping on the chin, maybe I'm actually awesome. Tapping at the collarbone, I am awesome. Under the armpit, I'm worthy of unconditional love. Tapping on the top of the head, I'm worthy of unconditional love. When you're ready to end up this session, tap on the right edge of the fingernails of the left hand one by one and say, while tapping on your thumbnail, there's a part of me that already knows how to live life without blaming myself for being overweight. Tapping on the index finger, that part of me is informing the rest of me now. Tapping on the middle finger, this information transfer is taking place. Tap on the ring finger with ease and grace. Tap on the little finger, this information transfer is complete now. Now with your closed eyes, close your hands over your chest. Take a deep breath and say transform. In your mind's eye, imagine this knowledge of how to live your day-to-day life without shaming yourself for being fat pouring in every cell of your physical and energetic bodies until your whole being vibrates with this new frequency. Take a time to visualize this happening. Watch as every cell of your body absorbs and reflects this new information. Watch your cells release the old patterns and witness the new choices being encoded into your DNA. Slowly open your eyes onto a world in which you are no longer shame yourself for being fat. Well done. Day 16 is complete. Go back to the number you had at the start of the session and see if it has shifted. If not, keep tapping on whatever came up for you. If you feel called to do so, repeat the script as often as you feel is helpful and tap on anything that comes up as a result, especially any memories, emotions, and aha moments. And I'll see you on day 17.